Hello and welcome to Mystic Visions with DrShiny. This is a monthly reading for Capricorn for the month of May. So let's go ahead and get started. And as usual, a reminder, if you're not subscribed already, please subscribe. I will be happy to draw additional cards for any subscribers at your request. So just let me know in the comments if that's something you would like. And let's go ahead and get started with your reading. So Capricorns, what we have for you today is... Okay, so... Okay, so what we have for you today is the Ace of Cups for your current situation, crossed by this Death card. So the way this works is that there is an opportunity for some real new emotional fulfillment, for some new emotional depth out of your life. There could be a necessity for you to go through something that's a little bit jarring, or to let some things pass away, some aspects of yourself. This is what this Death card is saying. There's a part of you that's going to sort of be reborn from the ashes here. Now, with the current situation being that Ace of Cups, this is a good thing, but it doesn't always feel like a good thing when you're going through it. So it's kind of like a tumultuous, rough transition at some points, and that's why this Death card comes up. It doesn't really refer to necessarily like a physical death of somebody that you know or something like that. I mean, it obviously it can, but the vast majority of the time, that's not what this is talking about. It's talking about a transition, or being reborn. And you can see even in this card here, instead of just calling it the Death card, they've also called it the Rebirth card, which I like because people tend to get caught up and a little bit perhaps afraid of the Death card, um, because it has some, scary connotations and things like that. But it's really nothing to be afraid of. It's a great transition, is what it is. Now, the energy that you're moving away from is this Two of Wands. And the Two of Wands is planning, right? This is being a little bit less likely to go out and do something, and just being stuck in the planning phases, or thinking, I might do this one day. And it generally has the feeling of like there's a lot of dreams and wishes and things that you think you might do one day, or you would do, but there's not a lot going on to actually put those plans into action. So it can be a little bit of a stagnant energy. And I think that what this is saying is that you might be a person who has lots of wants and desires, and you think, oh, I would love to do that, and aspirations for the future, but you may not be very good at putting those things into action, or leaving the planning stages and actually like getting your feet wet, right? So this is what this transition is meant to move you away from, is getting into a little bit more of like an action oriented space. So what you're moving toward, or what's coming in the near future, is this Ten of Swords. Now the Ten of Swords is kind of, I think, giving you a little bit more clarity on this death rebirth thing. So the Ten of Swords has this energy of it really feeling like it's the end, like you've been totally defeated, and there's nothing really left for you to do. And it has this sort of like, at the time, there's a brief moment when you think it's all over. But there's always this little hope that pops out of almost nowhere. And it's like, the night is darkest before the dawn is one of the ways to look at this, where just when you think all hope is lost, something kind of peeks out of the shadows, and you see the sun on the horizon, and things start looking up from that point, and there's almost a new outlook that comes from this type of an event, or something happening to you. So this plays into this death and rebirth, but what it means is that it's almost like a situation where the way you get through with this is not by maintaining your strength, or trying to keep your head above water. On the contrary, this is one of those situations where you have to just sort of like release, where you have to let it go, where you have to, I, I don't know where you live, but there's a lot of therapy in something called primal screaming, where when you're so frustrated, you just let out like the loudest scream, the craziest, wildest scream you can, and it's very therapeutic. What's his name from the Beatles? Old, uh, I don't know why I'm drawing a blank on this guy's name. He's like the most famous Beatle, not McCarthy, but John Lennon. There it is. Got to let your brain work sometimes. John Lennon. So yeah, he had this album, or I think it was an album where he just did nothing but those primal screams the entire time. Really interesting. But anyway, so that's the kind of energy that you're looking for, where it's just everything is gone, everything is done. But in the relaxation or the exhale that comes from just taking a break and like letting everything go, there's like a new life that comes from all that. There's a new beginning, or it could just be that like you've been trying to hold a lot of things together or juggle a lot of balls in the air that are really unnecessary, and for whatever reason, someone somewhere along the way convinced you that you need to be putting in all of this effort, or that you should be trying really hard to do these various things. And once you just kind of like start piling that stuff on, it's inevitable that you're going to fail, that you're going to fall. And when you do fall, it's almost like you realize, oh, well, hey, the world hasn't ended. I'm still here. Everything's still fine. So was it really necessary for me to be struggling so much all along, right? And the foundation is the Hierophant. Now, the foundation kind of represents the frame of all this. What is the universe trying to teach you? The core lesson bubbling up from your subconscious. So this kind of adds a little bit of perspective to what's going on here. The Hierophant is a lawmaker, right? But he's not like the emperor or a king, right? He's not making law for the society, to where you break the law, you go to prison, or you go to jail, or you get punished. It's not that kind of law. It's not that kind of severity. It's really more of moral laws, right? So this is, not necessarily what's right and wrong from the perspective of your society, but what makes you a good person, what makes you a polite person, right? You're not obligated as a person of any particular society. You're not obligated to go to heaven, or to be the best of whatever your particular religion tells you to be, but you are obligated to uphold certain societal standards, right? But so the Hierophant is more about fostering good community and good family communication, and good culture, right? So that's what the Hierophant's purpose really is. It's not so much to make the society possible by having all of these laws, but it's to add a sort of moral imperative which functions to make everybody get along a little bit better, and to help you find some purpose in life and things like that, right? It's your mental well-being. It's a form of nourishment, a form of health, and all that. So the institutions, religious institutions that are, the product of the Hierophant, what he establishes is the church and all of these, and to some degree philosophy. Science has become a kind of a new form of religion, and before anybody gets upset that I said that, I'm not saying that science is like equal to a religion, but it fulfills the same purpose in a lot of people's minds, and that is it gives meaning and purpose to everything that goes on in the world around you. So you can get that from, the Bible or from the Tao Te Ching or the Upanishads. Anywhere you want to get it, you can get that kind of narrative explanation for what life is about, what the universe is about, what all we're doing here. You can get that kind of an explanation from it, or you can get something that is based on the scientific method, that is a different way of explaining why we're here, and attempts to be somewhat more objective, right? So one of those narratives is more objective, one of them is more of metaphorical or narrative based. And that is okay, but what you have to realize is these things are made to make life easier. So if it's becoming a big strain on you, or you're feeling like you're failing in this regard, if you feel as though, let's say you're a Christian and you feel as though God is being really hard on you and it's causing you a tremendous amount of misery, or you're trying so hard to be a good person, to be like a perfect individual, that you're really suffering because you're just finding yourself failing at this and you just feel afraid and alone and everything like that, then what this might involve is kind of coming around to understanding that that sort of a perfection is not possible, and that's kind of not the point. Particularly within Christianity, you you're presented this story as though you left the Garden of Eden, and it's all your fault. You're born in sin. Somehow, you're responsible for the sins of your ancestors and all this, and you inherited that sin and all that. And it leaves you in this place of being really kind of frustrated that you feel like you're being judged for things that weren't your fault. And it doesn't matter what you do. It doesn't matter if you do good or do bad. Somehow that badness is just thrust upon you by others. The judgment is thrust upon you. It's a heavy burden. And it's very difficult, if you really choose to take that on. You start to find that you can't carry that burden. And ironically, that's the point of the metaphor of Jesus and all that, because he's supposed to just take that away from you. But the church has a way of trying to keep you trapped in a feeling of guilt, because it's good for the church, right? Because it's good to keep you coming back and get you paying money and things like that. But the real message is of forgiveness, and that's supposed to be a liberating feeling. That's supposed to be something that makes you feel more free, not necessarily something that makes you feel obligated or indebted, or something like that. If you feel like you need to earn or pay back God, for your salvation, then you haven't really understood the nature of grace, because that's not what it's about, right? So, in more general terms, a lot of you people are listening right now are probably not Christian. I'm sure some of you are. But for those of you who are not, in a more general way, this is saying that all of these things, like you want to be a good person, you want to be woke, you want to be um, helping other people become less oppressed. You're fighting for equality and those types of things. And those are very good things for you to do, but you have to realize that at some point, if those things are becoming too much of a stress on you, or too much for you to handle, or it's causing you some mental anguish. I know just reading the comment sections in some political posts is enough to really make you pull your hair out. So don't feel guilty about withdrawing from some of that, and finding your inner peace. Because if you bring that inner peace back out into the world, that has a way of sort of cooling off the tone a little bit. And when people are less up in arms and less combative, they're more receptive to common sense ideas and things like that. So regardless of how much you care about these things, there is this sort of imperative for you to distance yourself and find that sort of relaxed central core of life, where it's not about what everybody's doing. It's about just sitting in your backyard, breathing in the air, and listening to the crickets and these kind of things that are just morally neutral. And a lot of people would have you feel like if you're doing that, you should feel bad about yourself because there's other people who are not able to do that, right? There's other people fighting for their lives, there's other people struggling. But what you have to realize is that you're not helping those people just by stressing. You're not helping those people just by sitting in your home, wishing that you could do more and beating yourself up for it. You're helping those people a lot more by treating yourself well and taking care of your health and coming at every situation with a full tank, right? With a recharged battery, and you're less likely to be distracted by combative ideas and getting into petty arguments and things like that. So you have to take care of yourself, and you have to find a way to be selfish, but in a moderated way, right? So it's one thing if you're selfish all the time and you never care about other people's struggles or something like that. Maybe you should feel bad about that, right? But if you care a great deal, there comes a time where you have to, in moderation, practice being selfish. Because otherwise, you're going to do damage to yourself psychologically and physically. So you have to cultivate the ability to be selfish, even if you're not being selfish a lot, right? You have to at some points, at least a little bit. Everything in moderation, right? So you have to be selfish sometimes. Okay, so your conscious mind, what you have in your crowning thoughts is the star in the reverse. And this is meaning you might feel a little bit, well, there's two possible meanings here. So on the one hand, you might feel a little uninspired. You might feel a little bit trapped, or like your path is kind of set for you, and there's not really anything you can do about it. So you might be trapped in, financial situations like mortgages and things like that, and don't feel like you can pursue your dreams or your passions, and you're just kind of stuck at a dead end job. But then the other type of a meaning here is that you're just resistant to, uh, following the universe, just kind of diving in. You don't have a whole lot of trust in what's going to happen. You feel like you need to be very active and involved in making the world the way it should be, right? So there can be a little bit of a controlling type of a mentality to what the world around you is supposed to be like. So you might find yourself easily getting in arguments with other people if you disagree with their way of thinking or their way of life. And, again, I think that the root of that comes from caring about others. So it's not as though the intention is bad, but you have to be careful because it's easy to get caught up in situations where you're expending a tremendous amount of energy in a really non-productive type of way. So ask yourself, how many times has this pattern of behavior that you're displaying, how many times has it worked out well for you? I mean, really, how many times have you convinced somebody to come around to your way of thinking by really trying to control the situation? And if you can kind of wrap your head around that a little bit, you might find that you're following some patterns that are a little bit what's the word, like a little inefficient or a little bit unproductive. Okay, so the advice for you here is the Hanged Man. And the Hanged Man is somebody who is just kind of chilling, laying back. It can very much be involved with meditation, and it's a really great energy. I love this card because what it kind of conjures in my mind is that sometimes you get you and I suppose not everybody has experienced this because I didn't actually experience it until I was a little bit older, but you occasionally come across this feeling where you know that there's a lot to be done. You know that there are all kinds of things that have to happen. And you're feeling kind of frantic and you're trying to get everything done. You're getting a little nervous. You're kind of shaky sometimes. But then all of a sudden you just say, I'm letting all of this go. I'm just going to chill. I'm just going to take a nap. I'm, going to take a little me time. And when you do that, you start to realize that a lot of your frustration, confusion, and hyperactivity, a lot of that just comes from not having a really clear picture of what needs to be done, or having too much on your mind. You're juggling too much and all that. So just chilling a little bit and relaxing as a way of kind of cutting through all that, giving your mind time to organize and process and things like that. And then a lot of times you sort of realize some of these things solve themselves. You don't have to control every aspect of what's going on. And so this is in your advice card, an invitation for you to take a step back, breathe, relax, and think about what's really going to be effective in moving forward, instead of just throwing brute force activity at something. Figure out a way to be a little bit wiser about your application of energy. Now, your environment is the Temperance card, and it's in the reverse. And this means that somewhere around you there's a lack of temperance, or there is an influence that is perhaps a little bit more uneven, or there's like an excess of personality in some way. So perhaps somebody is a little bit of an arrogant type of a person, or um, shops too much, an addict possibly. Um, and this type of energy is just a distraction for you. It's something that you have to be careful not to let it rub off on you too much, because whatever's in your environment, the people that you hang around, that has a habit of becoming something that you mimic, especially if you love those people, right? So be careful about what types of energy you're allowing into your life. You It seems like you have a good head on your shoulders and you have really good intentions, but if you are used to being in an argumentative environment or something like that, you might be primed to try to solve really important problems in really, really ineffective ways by being too argumentative, or something like that. Now, your fears card, you have the Empress. And Empress, this one in the fears is a little bit weird for me, because Empress is usually a very nurturing energy. You can tell this is, that this card particularly does a good job of portraying, pregnancy, a motherly type energy, the divine feminine. And this is a way of ruling. Think of a really good mother, right? She's not necessarily authoritarian or anything like that, but she gets her children to do what they need from her loving and wise mentality. There's just some trust and some respect that she commands just from her presence, and it's not as though she has to prove that. Everybody knows when mom says something, mom's right, right? So this Empress has a tremendous amount of nurturing and motherly type of an energy with it. So in the fears card, um, it's kind of a difficult one to understand here. But either I could say that you're afraid of being pregnant or having children or something like that. That would be a very literal interpretation of this. On the other hand, it could be that there is a mother figure that you're not wanting um, to cross or to be involved with. You're kind of afraid of her coming down on you or being smothered by this motherly energy. So something to that effect. But it's a very odd card to have in the fears. So I hope something comes to your mind a little bit better than is coming to mine. So what we have for your overall message is the moon. And this is the unknown. And what this is kind of, it's tying this whole thing up in a little bow. The unknown is um, not just, well, okay, so in the context of your reading here, you're going to have to become more comfortable with the unknown. You're going to have to become more comfortable not knowing exactly how things are going to turn out or how things are supposed to be, letting go of feeling like you have to control things or you have to know how things are going, and just kind of allowing things to be what they are. And this can be difficult. It can feel kind of like drowning at first, right? But then you realize that you can you have gills, right? You can breathe underwater. I mean, not literally, don't go drown yourself, please. But the idea here is that the unknown actually is the source of your intuition and the source of your wiser instincts. And so there's a new type of thinking that you're sort of opening up to. And in this situation, it's going to feel a little bit chaotic and tumultuous, but in the long run, this is going to serve you very well. And it's kind of like you're a sailboat, right? And you're used to spending all of your time at the dock. You've never left the dock, but you're made to go out there and travel the world, right? So, but in order to do that, you're going to have to go through some pretty difficult times. You're going to go through some storms, some wind, and some rain. But if you feel like those things are to be avoided at all costs, you're never really going to go anywhere. You're never going to discover anything. You're never going to broaden your horizons. And you're never going to figure out that you were designed to go through those things. You were designed to be able to weather the storm. And so you have a lot of power that is untapped, a lot of untapped potential. And that comes from letting go of the reins a little bit, and not feeling like you have to have so much control, but to instead, turn this star upside down here and give the universe a little bit of control. Have some trust and some faith in the way that things are going to work out. And that will bring you a lot of emotional fulfillment, which is indicated by this here Ace of Cups. So there's a new happiness, a new contentment that is waiting for you, is available for you, but it takes some pretty difficult adjustments and a little bit of adaptation from you to be able to achieve that. And that's about all for the May reading for Capricorn. So thank you all for watching, and please leave me some comments and let me know what you thought about the reading and if it resonated. And as always, subscribe if you have not already. And I'll see you guys next month.